is there a question in the audience? Just in front here, go ahead. The question is about, he understands that some of the story about Escobar is true, but are any of these kind of intertwining stories inspired by anything that was true?
It's partially inspired by a true story and partially fictional. But even the story of Claudia, it's partially inspired by a true niece of Pablo Escobar, who was very close to him, and then find, you know, who Pablo Escobar really was in the hard way, because her boyfriend was killed in a car bombing in Bogota, and she went back to Escobar and smacked him in front of his men. So I like this character, but it's partially fiction and partially true.
Okay, another question in the audience. Yes, just towards the center here.
You said in the beginning that it took you 5 years to get this movie made, and you had to fight all the way. Why was that?
In the introduction, you mentioned it took you 5 years of fighting to get this made. Can you talk about why that was and what the process was to get it made?
Because I'm a first-time director, and it's very hard already to make a low-budget movie. This wasn't a low-budget movie. And also it was very difficult to make a movie for some reason about Pablo Escobar. A lot of directors tried to do it in the years, it was a big fight all the time, and I couldn't have done it if I didn't have actors that had the courage of trusting me, like Josh. It's what really, you know, it's what really every young director would need, is to have a talented actor to believe in you. So it's really thanks to him and Benicio.
That's a good segue. I'm going to throw a question to Josh and Claudia. Maybe you could each talk about how you became attached to the project and something you found challenging about it.
Yeah, I got attached to the project. A producer friend that I know, that actually John Kelly, who worked on the Hunger Games with me, he was a friend of Andrea's, and he gave me the script and said that Andrea was this actor who had this incredible script that was going to direct this movie, and then he thought that it would be great for me. So I read the script, and it was, I think, a year and a half or more before we even made the movie. And it was like 2 years.
You were shooting Hunger Games.
The first one, yeah. I was shooting the first Hunger Games when I read this, and yeah, I just fell in love with the story and the world of Pablo, and who he was. The character was so interesting to me, and then to find the way into that world through this character of Nick, who was fictionalized, and kind of to have this person that goes into the world of Pablo, and you can see how you fall for him, and you fall for that world, because we didn't show the drugs and the violence to Nick, and he had to have that naivety and that kind of, I don't know, purity, and so for me to play a character that goes into that world with such an honest, genuine search for love and life and the pursuit of happiness, and then Pablo happens to him. And I just thought it was a really honest character, and a very real character, and something that I connected with very much.
I did like a tape in Spain, like a normal audition. So many actresses did the audition, and when I did, it was like my first English audition, and I was like so happy after the audition, and then I did 7. So many. I flew to Los Angeles and Paris, and we did like so many, like a chemistry reading, and like so many things, and it was incredible. Like for me, it was a dream to be part of this movie and work with Benicio, with Josh, and with Andrea, and it was like a dream for me to make this movie.
Wondering why you chose Canadian as the
Yeah, we knew that one was coming, right? Why did you choose a Canadian to play the role?
Well, I in the beginning was an Irish protagonist, and then we had to cut the Irish beginning, and we had to shorten the script, and
I didn't want to be a leprechaun either.
For different reasons, I had to find, you know, I think that Irish I'm half Irish, so I say this. Irish and Canadian have a smart quality about how they bring themselves into the world. They have there's a smart kindness that they don't try to impose their culture when they go outside, but they're able to smile at people and be open-minded. It's a rare quality. And I thought that it was a narrative quality I could give to the protagonist, and to make it even more believable to go to Colombia and just, interact and fall in love with the country and with this girl.
Any other questions in the audience? It's just down in front.
Yes, hi, thank you very much. Congratulations, great film. How did you go about getting Benicio? And do you feel you're going to have any repercussions with anyone?
Two questions.
Repercussions?
First question was, how did you go about casting Benicio del Toro? And second question, do you think there will be any repercussions, presumably he means in Colombia, with the film?
Benicio was an obvious choice from the beginning. It took some time to convince him, because it was a very hard role to accept, and especially as with Josh, I was a first-time director, and it's not, you have to really feel comfortable. So I had to sing and dance and talk and sing and dance and talk. But what brought him to the project was really, I think he felt inspired enough to play this role, he jumped on board. And I think you can see on the result that is, the amount, what he brought to the film and to the character is absolutely impressive. As far as repercussions, I don't think this is a movie. I think that in Colombia, it has already been like a kind of TV series on Escobar. So the country is kind of relaxed with this idea of telling the story about Pablo. And I think that I've been really honest and specific and truthful about what kind of psychotic person he was and his psychology. I showed both sides of the coin of this brain. I didn't want to make a biopic and tell all the events of his life. I tell one event, but with that one event, I hope I showed a little bit of the intimacy of this man.
One of the things you managed to do really well is to capture all the locations that you shot in. Earlier backstage, you talked about how the crew was comprised of people that spoke many different languages, and that you shot the film in sequence, which is quite rare. So maybe if each of you could talk about just kind of what the shooting process was like for you and any challenges or fun things.
Yeah, I was actually only one of 3 Americans on the whole movie, which is a first for me. And the most common spoken language was not English either. It was Spanish and French. So I was behind the 8 ball a little bit when it came to communicating with the crew. But it was incredible. I mean, to work on a project, I felt like really, sometimes in American movies that I had experience with, it's like every department has their job, and if you step over that line, they're like, it's my job, what are you doing? And you kind of get gripey about it. But it really felt like on this set with this international crew that everybody was helping every department and everyone was working together. So I love the shooting environment. It just felt like everybody was really there to help each other and make the job as easy and enjoyable as possible. Filming in Panama was incredible. It was so challenging sometimes. But the locations were so beautiful, and the people there, they really embraced it. The local crew was so happy working with us. But yeah, the country, I think, really added a lot to the texture of the film, and it was unshot before. A lot of stuff that we had shot before, we shot in the movie hadn't been used in any film, so we didn't want it to seem like it was seen before, I guess.
No, also something else is it was a difficult shoot. It was very difficult because halfway through the movie we got into rainy season, and so I think sometimes I always heard stories